I don't think you could make the title of the song Bittersweet Symphony more poignant if you tried. It launched the Verve into stardom, but it also became one of their most problematic tracks.
We were just obviously taking on board technology and embracing it. In the end, it's not in the Stones' hands, it's in the hand of some guy in a suit in New York City who owns their material. Now, none of these people need any more money. I'm sure they have excessive amounts of money.
Bittersweet Symphony is undoubtedly the most successful song from the Verve, but it was also one of the most successful songs of the decade. It rocketed their third album, Urban Hymns, to the #1 spot in the UK charts, knocking off Be Here Now by Oasis. It would spend 12 weeks at #1 and a total of 124 weeks in the charts. In 1997, this album would outsell behemoth albums from the likes of Radiohead, Blur and Oasis, who released LPs the same year, all thanks to Bittersweet Symphony. It was nominated for a Grammy, would feature in countless ads, TV shows and films, and would be named Single of the Year by both the NME and Rolling Stone magazine. In the first 22 years of its existence, the song would generate around $5 million in publishing revenue, and the Verve would see none of that. Well, actually, they made $1,000 from it through technicalities, but other than that, they didn't make a single penny. So let's explore the story of Bittersweet Symphony, and I'm happy to say that there is a happy ending at the end of all this, so stick around for that. Hi, I'm Adam, welcome back to Music Mongoose. The song's decidedly grand sound is largely due to the iconic orchestral arrangement featured in the track. It provides a stark contrast between it and the lyrics, which mainly reflect on the struggles and contradictions of life, expressing a poignant and contemplative commentary on the human experience. Richard Ashcroft actually came very close to scrapping the song altogether, until Martin Glover, producer, added the strings, which really brought the track to life. I mean, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous song, you don't need me to tell you that, but the Verve did make a mistake with who they decided to lift the sample from. Bittersweet Symphony involved mixing around 50 tracks of instrumentation, the most notable of which came from the Andrew Oldham Orchestra, and their version of The Last Time by the Rolling Stones. Now, things get slightly confusing here, so stay with me. The 60s saw a trend of creating orchestral renditions of famous pop songs. The Beatles and the Stones were prime examples of this. Andrew Oldham was actually the manager of the Rolling Stones at the time, and his side project was the Andrew Oldham Orchestra. But in truth, there was no orchestra. It was just him and some session musicians, including actual members of the Rolling Stones. He added the word orchestra to make it seem more official, I guess. Andrew Oldham's orchestra, which wasn't really an orchestra, released an orchestral version of The Last Time written by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards as part of their album, The Rolling Stones Songbook. The Verve sampled this orchestral version in their song, Bittersweet Symphony. All caught up? Good. By the way, I didn't want to include a side-by-side audio comparison of the two songs in this video because, ironically, I didn't want to get a copyright strike, but I've popped a link down below to a video that explains how the sample is lifted from the original song. Okay, ready for more confusion? Interestingly, the Rolling Stones song, not the orchestral version by the orchestra that's not a real orchestra, but the original penned by Jagger and Richards, wasn't actually an original. Jagger and Richards based their song on another song from 1958, called This May Be the Last Time by the Staple Singers. In 2003, Keith said, "We came up with The Last Time, which was basically readapting a traditional gospel song that had been sung by the Staple Singers. But luckily the song itself goes back into the mists of time." And what he means by this is that the song is categorized as a traditional song, which means its origins go so far back in time that no one really owns the rights to it. So how come the Rolling Stones were able to claim rights to it, you ask? Dunno. Well, in fact, it wasn't uncommon at all for classic rock artists to take songs from black artists and turn them into hits of their own and assert the copyright over them. As I said, the sample was from the song released by the Andrew Oldham Orchestra, that's not really an orchestra. That song was released under Decca Records, and they held all the rights to the song. The Verve rightfully asked Decca Records if they could use the 5-note sample for their own song. Decca said, "Yeah, go for it lads, why not?" And the song was released in 1997. It performed really well, as you know, and things were looking peachy for the Verve. And then it went not so peachy. You see, although they had permission from Decca to use the sample from the Andrew Oldham Orchestra that's not really an orchestra, they didn't have permission from the owners of the original, that isn't really original, Rolling Stones song. And this song wasn't owned by Decca Records, it was owned by ABKCO. And ABKCO was owned by notorious music industry villain Alan Klein. If this was a pantomime, Alan would be the guy that you boo and hiss at when he walks on the stage. Oh, and if you're in America and you don't know what a pantomime is, Alan is like the guy who thinks that freedom is overrated, thinks hot dogs are disgusting, and thinks NASCAR is rubbish. He's the villain of the story is the main point I'm trying to make here. Klein is so evil that he actually had a lot to do with the Beatles breaking up. I mean, he did also stop them going completely bankrupt and did a lot of positive things for the Beatles, but for the sake of this story, he's just evil, okay? What's more, the Rolling Stones would accuse him of not paying the band royalty payments, stealing publishing from them, and even not paying their taxes for 5 years. Klein would somehow end up owning the copyrights of all the Stones songs prior to 1971. Jazz Summers, the manager of the Verve, reportedly spoke to Alan Klein on the phone to try to resolve the issue. Klein, being the evil man he is, denied a licensing agreement because he didn't believe in the concept of sampling in songs. You see? Evil! He's plain evil! As a last-ditch attempt, the head honcho at Virgin Records, Ken Barry, actually flew to New York to meet with Klein personally. Amazingly, the meeting ended with an agreement for a 50-50 split between the Verve and Klein. This would have been a great result for the Verve. However, when Alan saw how well the song was doing, he decided to change his mind. Performing a drastic U-turn, Klein accused the Verve of sampling too much of the song and sued them for plagiarism. It was settled out of court with ABKCO maintaining 100% of the royalties and Jagger and Richards being added as writers of the song. The song, living up to its title, continued to grow and grow in popularity, with the Verve seeing none of that benefit. This agreement also meant that the Verve had no say in how or where the song was used, which is why you'll see it in countless adverts, TV shows, and movies. Nike is a great example of this. Despite the Verve saying no to them using the song, they opted to simply license it from ABKCO instead. Bittersweet Symphony actually became one of ABKCO's most lucrative songs. And again, the Verve and Richard Ashcroft would see none of the generated revenue. Despite this, the album still became one of the greatest selling UK albums of all time, featuring tracks like Lucky Man, Sonnet, and The Drugs Don't Work. Songs that proved Ashcroft wasn't solely dependent on Bittersweet Symphony. He could demonstrate his songwriting prowess by other means. The man won an Ivor Novello Award in 1998 for Songwriter of the Year. He didn't need the rights to Bittersweet Symphony to prove himself as a good songwriter. After the success of Urban Hymns, however, things started to decline for the band. They disbanded in 1999 because of internal conflicts. Whether the lawsuit had anything to do with it is anyone's guess, really. They reunited in 2007, embarked on a tour that year, and released the album Fourth in 2008, which featured the hit single Love Is Noise. The band then broke up again in 2008. And also, it's important to note that Richard Ashcroft wasn't just sitting around accepting the fate of Bittersweet Symphony all of those years. In 2018, he said this: "I'm coming for that money. Someone stole God knows how many $1 million off me in 1997 and they've still got it." And he did come for it.
And now Mick and Keith have given me the royalties back for Bittersweet. It's even more sweeter than it was before, so.
John Kennedy, one of the Verve's managers, explained how difficult this period was. Songwriters often talk about their songs as if they are their children, and to have one of your children taken away from you has been brutal for Richard. He's endured it, not always patiently or in silence, but it's been terrible for him. In 2009, Alan Klein passed away, and his son Jody became the new head of ABKCO. In 2019, Jody set up a meeting between the Verve's managers and Joyce Smith, manager of the Rolling Stones. Joyce, after speaking to Richards and Jaggers, came back to the Verve's managers with some good news. They had agreed to return the rights and their share of the royalties to Richard Ashcroft, and to have their names struck from the songwriting credits. Richard Ashcroft added this: "This remarkable and life-affirming turn of events was made possible by a kind and magnanimous gesture from Mick and Keith, who have also agreed that they're happy for the writing credit to exclude their names, and all their royalties derived from the song will now pass to me." A song truly befitting of its title in more ways than one. Another band who had their fair share of trouble copying other artists was Led Zeppelin. You can click here for 7 times Led Zeppelin ripped off other artists. Thank you and goodbye.